Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something super fascinating and, honestly, kind of exhausting. We're talking about those invisible social boundaries we navigate every single day, and the very real, sometimes heavy personal costs of maintaining them. We're gonna look at a highly specific dilemma, that intense friction between what society expects from us and what our own minds and hearts can actually handle. It's basically a psychological tightrope, and, well, a lot of us are walking it without even realizing we stepped onto the wire.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever suffered in silence emotionally just to save someone else's feelings? I mean, really think about it. Think about a time you just nodded along to something you strongly disagreed with. Or maybe you swallowed your own frustration just so you wouldn't make someone else look bad or feel weird in a group setting. It's that slow burn of internal tension, right? When you say yes, but literally every fiber of your being is screaming no. That totally relatable, almost universal experience, that is the exact psychological conflict we're breaking down today. It's a heavy reality for sure, but confronting that friction is step one toward genuine boundary setting.
To tackle this, we're gonna follow a clear four-part path. First, the face-given concept. Second, the emotional dilemma it creates. Third, we'll do a cost-benefit analysis. And finally, number 4, the art of rejection.
All right, jumping right into section 1, the face-giving concept, understanding the cultural norm.
So what actually is face-giving? Basically, based on our module, it's a social practice entirely centered around preserving someone's dignity and social standing. It's the art of making sure interactions run smoothly, without causing embarrassment. But, and here is the absolute critical pivot, participants must learn to appreciate the limitation of face-giving. That word right there, limitation, that's the key to the whole shebang. Face-giving isn't some absolute unbreakable rule. It has edges. It has boundaries. And when those boundaries get crossed, a tool meant for social harmony actually becomes incredibly toxic to the person using it. It's tough to accept because we're often wired to prioritize external peace over our own internal sanity.
Now, as the source points out, this concept is highly popular in Asia, though variations of it exist everywhere. And that geographic and cultural context is super important because it shows just how deeply ingrained these expectations are. This isn't just a polite little habit, it's a foundational societal framework. When a cultural norm is that dominant, challenging it doesn't just feel like a personal hurdle, it feels like you're pushing back against an entire society's expectation of how a good person behaves. The pressure to conform and just give face is immense. Which brings us to section 2, the emotional dilemma, the conflict of boundary setting. Okay, so when you get pushed to your absolute limit, you're faced with a really harsh fork in the road. On one side, you've got lose face. This means you let the situation break down, you hold your ground, but the other person might lose face socially. On the other side, you can perfectly preserve their face, but you accept self-suffering. This is where that swallowed frustration we talked about earlier turns into an impossible, agonizing choice. You are literally forced to decide whose comfort is more important in that exact moment, theirs or yours.
And let's be clear about what we mean by self-suffering. The text breaks it down into two distinct tolls: emotional self-suffering and mental self-suffering. We aren't just talking about a fleeting moment of annoyance that you brush off by the time you get home. Maintaining someone else's social dignity at the expense of your own boundaries leads to quiet, compounding pain. Emotional suffering might look like lingering resentment or sadness. Mental suffering, that's your deep fatigue, your overthinking, and eventually, burnout. You're systematically sacrificing your own fundamental needs just to keep up an illusion of harmony. And honestly, that exacts a massive toll over time.
So how do we fix this? Section 3, cost-benefit analysis, making the hard choice.
To navigate this huge internal friction, the module introduces a highly analytical framework, a cost-benefit analysis. Basically, it's a tool used to choose between the social cost of losing face and the internal cost of suffering. It requires taking a deliberate, conscious step back from the heat of the moment. When you feel that immense pressure to just give in, you pause. You logically weigh the external social expectations against your own internal well-being. You are measuring the tangible social cost of a messy interaction against the invisible internal cost of your own emotional exhaustion. You're putting the external world and your internal world right there on a scale.
If you think of this as a 2x2 matrix comparing your action against your internal result, the reality becomes piercingly clear. If your action is to keep face for the other person, the unavoidable result is almost always that you take on the suffering yourself. But if your action is to let the situation lose face, you protect your internal state, even though you take a hit socially. Mapping it out like this is a real game changer. Why? Because it completely removes guilt from the equation and replaces it with logic. It empowers you to clearly ask, is saving this specific interaction really worth the cost to my mental health? But what if there's a middle ground? You know, between total compliance and total breakdown?
That leads us perfectly into Section 4, the art of rejection, learning techniques for balance.
The ultimate goal here is to pull off two seemingly opposing actions at the exact same time. Step 1, maintain face giving. Step 2, reject the person. Just think about how incredibly powerful that dynamic is. You are navigating the limitations of a strict social practice by holding your boundary, delivering the rejection you absolutely need to deliver for your own well-being, while simultaneously preserving the dignity of the person you're rejecting. It's this delicate, razor-thin sweet spot between total submission to a cultural norm and a harsh, blow-up social conflict.
As the source material puts it perfectly, learn techniques to maintain face giving while rejecting the person. This is absolutely crucial. It's the pinnacle of boundary setting. It represents a mature, highly developed approach to human interaction. It acknowledges the deep, undeniable cultural importance of social dignity, right? It respects the world we live in while firmly and unapologetically validating your individual right to protect yourself from mental and emotional suffering. In short, you don't have to be a martyr to be polite.
So, I'll leave you with this. When you find yourself backed into a corner and that cost-benefit analysis is playing out right in front of you, will you choose to protect social face or will you choose to protect yourself? And more importantly, now that you see the mechanics behind it all, are you ready to learn how to do both? Recognizing the dilemma is step 1. Mastering the art of the balanced rejection is the lifelong journey. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer today. Keep learning, keep analyzing those boundaries, and I'll catch you next time.